All right, well, we're taking the opportunity today to talk about stereotypes and stereotype threat. This is certainly appropriate based on the discussions we had in English 101 with respect to the use of Native American mascots. And we had a good discussion in terms of whether the use of these images and the names of various sports teams, whether they're high school teams, college teams, or even professional sports teams, whether the use of the Native American mascots would be considered offensive in any way. How many of you would consider, based on what we read, there to be some stereotypical nature to the use of Native American mascots? Some feel that way, and perhaps others don't.
I'm Native
Christopher.
American, and I don't care too much about that.
Okay, so perhaps based on our own experiences, when we encounter images, perhaps even stereotypical images that reflect aspects of our own culture, sometimes they can be troublesome or offensive, and other times perhaps they don't bother us as much. See a lot of stereotypical images in the media and various places in our culture, and certainly our sports teams are no exception. So we had a really good conversation about that this morning. Other comments, Ed?
I was going to say, yeah, not even for, like, in terms of stereotypes and stuff like that. I mean, with Redskins and all that stuff, I think, honestly, the name's built for intimidation. I mean, that's what it is, to scare another team. On top of that, when you have international sport like rugby,
Yes.
rugby believes in the Polynesian war dance. And it's, forget the full name, but it's this dance where they pretty much, you know, they stomp, they clap their bodies, they chant real deep, and they just, like, it's to psych out the other team. And at the end of it, they clap like this, like overhand. It's supposed to be that we eat your soul. That's what that means.
Oh my.
And it's, rugby teams use this to intimidate other people. But it comes from a Polynesian war dance, and there's this whole stigma that the Polynesians do that. And it's, I mean, I think that for certain things like sports, it's done for intimidation. It's not done to be ridiculing someone, to make fun of someone. It's to, hey, I want to scare the living out of you, and I'm going to do it with this. And I think it might be a backhanded tribute, but it's still a tribute, I think.
A backhanded tribute, that's what Ed is suggesting perhaps that it might be. And some, again, may feel that the use of these mascots and images, of course, in their view, it might be a source of mockery or a sense of mockery in some way. We're really talking about an aspect of culture that's everywhere, and you'll want to consider for your own papers the topics that you'll choose. They should be a problem or a societal issue, a cultural issue that you believe, of course, requires a solution. We're going to talk today about this whole notion of stereotypes, because that's really what's at the heart of those that are offended by the use of Native American mascots and images, is that they're promoting a negative stereotype of this particular population. So we want to explore stereotypes and this whole notion of stereotype threat. Has anyone ever heard of stereotype threat? Yes, no?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, from certain things like you're worried people are gonna think of you one way because you're black, you're white, you're Asian, you're Jewish, you're Catholic, you're agnostic, you're Muslim. I mean, because of that, there are plenty of threats that can be perceived. So.
That's right, and that is the definition of stereotype. Though you touched on that very accurately. It is the threat of being viewed in a negative way or through a negative lens based on a stereotype, or with respect to stereotype, feeling that you might do something and being afraid of doing something that might actually confirm inadvertently that stereotype that's being promoted. The work that we're talking about today is really based on research of Dr. Claude Steele out of Stanford University. And we're going to talk about stereotype and identity construction, and ultimately talk about strategies that can help us to lessen or mitigate the effects of stereotype threat, and to empower you as students in terms of academic stereotype threat. So you had the chance to think about some aspects of your identity and identity construction. Let me just share with you this, that when it comes to schooling, a lot of students have a sense of anxiety for a lot of reasons. They're just anxious about being in school. And stereotype really taps into one type of anxiety or fear that can be associated with being in the classroom. That is, again, the fear of being viewed negatively based on some stereotype being promoted about one's culture. So I want to ask you about your identity construction. What are some of the various groups that you belong to? Whether it's a racial ethnic group or not. Can you think of some groups that you represent? Alexandria.
I put female, African American, college student, dance major, and like the track.
Okay, good. Female African American, a
College,
dance major.
Yeah, and back in high school. And then the college student.
Okay, good. Those are all representing Alexandria. And Daquan, what did you have though?
I've just been sports.
The sports culture is a part of your identity. Is there a particular sport that?
I pretty much like did most of them. I watched most of them, so it'd be not really.
Okay, you just embrace all sports and they reflect who you are as a person. Ed, any cultures that you?
Yeah, I was gonna say white, agnostic male. I'm 20 and I'm from the East Coast. I mean, there are plenty of different views with being agnostic. That people like, oh, you don't believe in God. Well, no, I believe there is a source of power that helps us or guides us through life, but I don't want to put a gender on it. I don't want to put a name to it. I just believe that it's there.
Okay.
And you know, and being from the East Coast versus West Coast, from the South, from the North.
Yes.
I mean, there's different kinds of views from that, and just, you know, everything can change, like styles of cooking, talk, speak, you know.
That's right.
So there's just different views of it.
I was just in North Carolina on Sunday, back home where I consider to be home. You're right. Totally different way of living, and that's really what we're talking about with culture. Ways of behaving, belief systems, and rituals in your lifestyle can vary depending on where you are in the country. Christopher, cultures.
Like mixed male Catholic, just a teenage football player.
Okay, good. Mixed, as in a racial identity, male, Catholic, football player. Did I get them all? Okay, good. And Sarah, your cultures.
I just put theater.
Theater. So you represent those who are involved in the acting world and in the theater culture. Good. So how old were you? Do you remember when you first began to form your identity in any of these areas that you mentioned? Ed?
I was 3.
3 years old.
And it started with my father giving me the heritage of my last name.
Okay.
And the echelons, it means guardian of the rich or rich guardian. And it spawned back from actually Viking time, apparently. And it was just like showing me all this heritage and pride, and it started at literally age 3, getting to know and spell my name.
Interesting.
And you know, being the fact that I was, like when I grew up, you know, being a white kid who played with all the black guys because I was a bigger guy and I matured physically faster than the other ones. So I got introduced to all that culture, and my dad telling me, you know, it's great to have black friends, but you know, be proud of the fact that you're white. Be proud of the fact that you know, this is where you come from. And just certain things getting established by that. But yeah, it started for me at age 3.
It's interesting that your father instilled a sense of pride about the various cultures and the family history, the various cultures that you represented. And I'm wondering then how you have dealt with any stereotypes about those cultures that you represent. Are there any stereotypes that exist for any of those cultures that you represent?
Yeah, I mean, there's, you know, there's all different kinds of comical looks at it. I don't know too much about I was baptized Roman Catholic, so like Roman Catholic stuff, I don't know too many, like, you know, prejudice stereotypes against it. But I mean, yeah, being white, I can't jump, can't play sports, can't run fast, can't do this, can't do that, you know, whatever. I'd be all those stereotypes.
You beat them?
Yeah, of course.
Okay.
I mean, when it came to school, I've always been looked at as like, oh yeah, that guy, you know, he's brawn. He's not anything. There's no brains. Get in a class and I'll show up kids on notes, homework, like, you know, and various things like that. I mean, granted, my performance this past 3 weeks hasn't been spectacular, but that's a family issue outside of class. But I mean, yeah, it's just certain things like that. I mean, yeah, I've experienced them, and you just get through them. You show people that they're wrong.
Okay.
That's all you do.
So you have a sense of self-determination to prove those stereotypes wrong. Anyone else? These groups that you've just mentioned, are there any stereotypes about them?
Yeah, for me, like, oh, she's black, but she's ghetto. She likes to fight. You know, stuff like that. And it's just like, I don't know, a lot of people, they'll probably look at me like, oh, she wears long nails, it's just like, okay, just because I wear that doesn't mean I'm this and I'm that. Like, once you get to know me, I've heard a lot of people, like back in high school, like I was quiet, I keep to myself, and a lot of people were like, you know, I used to think you were mean because you never smiled. And it's just like, okay, so you want me to walk around with a smile on my face, But then they're like, when I got to know you, you're cool as ever. But
Uh-huh.
just like a lot of people, like I've heard that, you know, going in the 12th grade, a lot of people in my class was like, I never talked to you like in the 9th grade because I just thought you were so mean, you know. And they're like, once I got to know you, I liked you. And I'm like, you waited so long for that. You missed out like from 9th on all the way to the 12th grade, and now you're hanging out with me. You know, it's just like, just because I don't smile or I don't talk to every person that walks my direction doesn't mean I'm mad or anything like that. So I think it just comes with the territory, I put it.
I had the exact opposite situation when I was about your age in college. I have a habit of smiling all the time. And people would say, well, I had one particular friend of mine now, we're still friends even after so many years after college. And she said, you know, when I first met you, I thought you were just fake and phony, that smiling. And I said, it was hurtful because I thought, well, this is me. I love to smile. I'm just a genuinely happy person. But she judged me based on her opinion of whatever stereotype she had in mind of people who have whatever type of appearance, just like you're talking about. So now that you know that, or after you were exposed to that opinion, did you change your behavior at all?
No. Not really. I mean, I still, it's not that I have like a mean look. I don't know if it's just me, but like, I'm me. Like, I can't change it. Maybe I can improve who I am, but like, it doesn't really faze me. I don't know.
It doesn't bother you?
Yeah.
Anyone else with these have stereotypes about your culture, and have you changed your ways?
That's what I was about to say.
Big one.
I have like a certain group of friends. Like I used to live in the city, and I like hang out with them sometimes. And since I live out here, I hang out with friends out here. And my city friends, they say I talk a lot different.
Your city friends say you speak differently.
Yeah, and like I tell them, it was like, I don't know that I'm doing it. It's not that I'm trying to do it. It's just, it happens. Like I don't have no recognition of me doing it or not. And they go, well, you just talk so proper. And I was like, well, I don't know how. I mean, this is just how I talk. And so like, I don't know. But it's just weird. You just get used to it after a while. Because like all my life, probably since the time I was, I'm gonna say 7, probably all the way up, I always had 1 or 2 more white friends, just because I played football in the county. And like all my other friends, they played football in the city.
So it began to make judgments based on your speech and maybe who you were hanging around.
Yeah, no, it's just not my fault. Like I'm a friendly guy. If you ask anyone, I'll just go around campus and start saying hi to people I don't know.
Yes, that is true.
It's just something to do. I mean, at the same time, you're bucking someone, but at the same time, you could probably make their day just because you said something.
That is so true. A kind word can make a difference in one's day. Any other stereotypes for theater majors? Other stereotypes?
Yeah, I noticed when I got into theater in middle school, I completely judged it because to me it looked like they were all freaks. I mean, it was just, I don't know if it was like, I don't know, I just definitely was not into like how they dressed and, you know, what color their hair was and stuff like that. But that actually, I got into it in middle school, and then in high school, I mean, it just got even weirder. And like my best friend was the quarterback of the football team. He did lacrosse, he did this, he did that. My other best friend, she was the like debate president and this and that, and it was just like a lot of the theater kids that I had there, they just only hung out with theater kids. And mine, I mean, like, I'm just so diverse in like a lot of things. It just doesn't really freaking matter to me. You know what I mean? Like, if you're happy, I'm happy. As long as you're not hurting yourself or others, that's it. That's my rule. So, I mean, yeah, there was just kind of like, I know it's kind of like weird, but that's so high school. You know, like, are you serious? Like, I'm not going to care what you wear next week, okay? Get over it. I'm not going to lie, in the beginning I was just like, okay. You know, like, yeah, I'm not talking to you. But then, like, you get to know who they are, you break down the walls, and it's just like, they're actually pretty cool, you know, stuff.
And that's the thing, I was trying to pick up on this point, that you took the time to engage with others, and despite whatever physical appearance may have had or energy that they have been projecting, that you did take time to kind of go beyond whatever walls.
You'll miss out if you don't. That's just kind of how it is.
Alex?
Just to piggyback off of what Sarah said, how like you hang out with certain groups. In the maybe 4th grade, like all my friends were pretty much white. I had like a Chinese best friend. And when I got to high school, all my friends were black. And I used to be the black girl, and a lot of my friends were like, "You talk so white. You act so white." And I remember I told one of my friends, "Oh, I love to rock climb. You should go rock climbing with me." And she's like, "Oh,
What?
that's for white people."
Interesting.
And I'm like, the person who introduced me to rock climbing was my friend who was Chinese. And I'm like, how can you say that? Like, I see a lot of black people rock climbing. And you just wouldn't think that. Like, but yeah, I do like rock climbing. And
We
it's
used
just
to rock
like,
climbing there, yeah, middle school. We used to do an inflatable rock.
it
used to climb it in the
like,
gym.
no, it was like a building, like a little fun center that the kids used to have. We used to go after school, and it's like when rock climb, you did the ropes course way at the top. And people were like, you did that? And I've heard a lot of people say, I was exposed to a lot of things at a young age.
Yes.
Like my family, they believe in you should do it, you should try it, just to say you did it. And when I got to high school, I was like, oh yeah, we should do this, we should do that. And they're like, you did that? And I'm like, yeah, y'all don't do that. And I've always got looked upon like, oh, you're so spoiled, you're this and you're that. And it's like, no, I can't help that my family exposed me to a lot of stuff. And I'd like to expose people to stuff that they don't like to do.
And why would you want to help that? That's
Right,
what
it's yeah. So when she said you hang around that one group, like in high school, I kind of missed like, you know, the diversity. of,
Yeah.
like, yeah, I don't know. I missed that.
My
I
high
had
school
no
was
choice.
surrounded
My whole
by-
high school
Yeah.
was white.
Let me
You had like legit one black like it was like a group of black people. They only came there for basketball.
really.
Like it got to the point to where everyone would go, "Oh, you're only here for basketball." And most of the time I would say, "Well, yeah, duh. I mean, I would not come to school for no other reason." I unfortunately like playing basketball, but I didn't want to play on the team. I didn't like the coach. It's too much. But it was like every time you walk down the hall, they did anything, and then you like go here, a teacher would go, "Oh my God, that basketball team is so annoying," and you were like, I'm guessing she's talking about all the black kids in class. So I mean, it's really funny how it works, but I mean, yeah, no.
Stereotypes are fascinating. I want you to think about too, these groups that you've mentioned, the basketball team, the football team, the theater group, being an African American female. Are there any academic stereotypes?
Yes. I was told.
Daquan.
I was told that Asian people are always the smartest,
Yeah.
and the
Right.
reason why they say that is because China is like 3 years ahead of us in technology. Period.
So there is a stereotype, a positive stereotype, reflecting something positive about the fact that Asian Americans.
But the only reason why I think they say that is because like in my ACDV class I had, they were like we were talking. I was like it was an all black ACDV class. I don't know why they offered it on campus, so I took it. But my teacher, he was telling us like why they're so like excel in what they do. It was just like, what do they always do? They're always on computers, and not just that. They'll go home, study, do their homework, even do like a little bit more than that homework, and sit there and play on the computer, and that's why they're so advanced than us. What do? We'll go home, be lazy, do your homework the last minute stuff.
Who's weak?
Well, he was talking about black. I'm not gonna lie. He's talking about black people, but I know I do it, so I can't lie about it.
All right.
I'm like the world's biggest procrastinator ever.
Oh, we're gonna talk about that some more too. Other academic stereotypes about any of these groups that you've encountered? Sarah.
Not with race. I know and out of all my friends, including my boyfriend, they were all in GT, AP, honors, and I was completely all standard my entire life, except for theater.
Welcome.
And you have no idea how many times, even my own circle of friends who, if they like insult me, I'm like, I'm gonna let that slide. You know what I mean? But like, like they would say something and like such like with so much vocabulary. I'm like, well,
What does that
what
mean?
does that mean? Oh, you don't know what that means.
Like
Oh, okay.
I get that too, because I have all my friends who they were either in honors, AP honors, or some like started taking college courses in high school.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting there going, well, I almost got close because I took a college class, but I didn't get credit for it. And it was a computer class, and I legit did I did better than everyone who was taking it for college credit.
Yeah. You get put down to be dumb or something. And I was actually in GT, but I definitely dropped it, too much homework. And I was just like, I'm capable of doing that, you know what I mean? But you don't have to sit there and just, oh, okay. Or, oh,
I
that's
already
why
tell
you're
you,
in
I'm taking
standard,
the easy
you
route.
know?
Like they actually had me
Yeah.
sign up for EP class or honors classes when I got to high school, and I agreed. And I told the principal, I was like, did you really look at my transcripts? because I barely passed middle school with like C's and D's. And she was like, well, yeah, you're capable of an honors class. It's like, no, look again. And I got off my class as standard. I'm not going into anything that's like involves me doing a lot more work.
Yeah.
Interesting. Alex?
That's like at my school we had the New York State Regents classes. I like how you did your big impression. Because in high school they pressured all the kids to do reading classes. You have to do reading. And that was the whole thing, like, oh my God, I have to do this. And I didn't notice until maybe the 12th grade where it's a New York State Regents. Meaning if I go out of New York State, they don't care about that. They didn't even look at it. So I'm like, you're pressuring me to do all this Regents work, but I'm not even going to a college in New York State. So it's like I pretty much wasted my time.
That's the same
And it's
thing.
just like, are you
That's the same thing in
serious?
private schools. If you go to a private school, then it's one of your subjects is theology, which is the study of God.
Yes.
And like it doesn't carry anywhere you go. Even if you go to a university or something like that, it does not carry over. It's like a waste of time and it's a waste of class.
Well, that depends on your pursuit too. Because if you want to go to a Christian university or something, theology, that credit may
It counts. It counts. But
exactly. So I understand where you're coming from. But that's the thing. You have to look at where people want to go.
But that's the thing. Like I had 3 friends who took college classes for theology. Didn't even want to. There was no point in them getting it because they wanted to go to different universities.
And oh, sorry.
Like it, I don't have a problem with you. Like I don't have a problem with the subject or anything like that. But why they making us say that as a high school credit, which was beyond me. I can understand because we're in a Catholic school, take the class. Yes, no problem. But for us to take it as a credit, way beyond me.
Interesting. I want to ask you, since we're talking about these academic stereotypes and some of these experiences that you've had with various courses and systems, are there stereotypes about groups of students or cultures that would be particularly good at doing English or do English well? You all are taking this English class with a diverse group of students. Is there a stereotype about which type of students would do better
For
writing?
math,
For math?
is, or Asians or something like that. Yeah.
Not in English, I don't think.
In
All the
English
things
is
there's
pretty-
one for English.
Okay. So there's no stereotype necessarily related to a culture group with English. So all of you have the potential to supersede, if there were a stereotype about a particular group, to go beyond, to excel. And that's really what we're talking about here. Ways in which we can overcome academic stereotype threat, where you feel, again, the sense of fear that you're going to confirm some sort of stereotype or to not measure up academically. Let me ask you then, in what ways have you experienced academic stereotype threat? Ed?
I know 1, trying to get into the military, and 2, on just other college applications. I'm a GED kid. I had to wind up dropping out of high school, and I went and got my GED. And like for military entrance for the Army,
Yes.
they say that it's mandatory. I have to get 12 college credits, even with my GED, to be qualified as a kid who graduated and walked the stage and just got a piece of paper with a diploma. I'm not as good. I have to get 12 more credits to be as good as that guy who screwed around and walked across the stage. Like, I mean, it's certain things like that with like military entrance that was hard for me to get through that. And then like, you know, with college, certain colleges like it, appreciate it more than you're a GED kid because, you know, you're really trying to do something with yourself. But at the same rate, there's all this remedial they feel you need that you might not need. And it's, I don't know, it's like they're almost forcing a crutch on you that some people don't need, some people might need it. But it's like they're trying to overcompensate for you, trying to give you everything when in fact you might not need everything. Or like with the military, they literally joked around and said it's the good enough degree. You need 12 more credits. GED, good enough degree. And it was like, it really spoke to me. I was like, you know, I'm coming to you as a person trying to work for my country, trying to, you know, and it's a good enough degree. I need 12 more credits. I'm not good enough because I got that. I put in the time. I went to class for this. I got the good scores for it. Yeah, just good enough degree. And that's what it's always looked at. I hate it.
Same with the physical standpoint at that point, because I heard you can't do like a certain amount of push-ups and stuff like that. You basically can't join the Army. And I'm sitting there going, don't they like train you for all that?
Okay, so the expectation that you be in a certain physical condition to even
Enter it. It makes no sense. No sense at all.
All right, Alex.
That's like a report card. Me personally, if I was a parent and my child came to me with his or her report card, I can't judge their work off a letter.
Okay.
You know how we get A's and B's? Like,
Yes.
who are you to tell me that my child is like a A student? What's an A student? It's just a letter.
Do you think that there's
I
some
don't-
stereotyping going on with respect to how grades are given?
I think it is. I don't think it's like. Yeah, there's stereotype. Maybe like, you know, the Asian kids get all A's and then the black kids get like all D's. But it's just like, okay, it's a letter grade. Like my dad, he looked at my report card, but he's just like, who are you to tell me my child is like, you know, she got an A in dance, but like a C in English. It's a letter grade. If I can show you that I could do the work up to a certain amount, then it should be worth something more than a C. I don't know if I'm explaining it right, but it's just
Oh
like,
no, you're explaining perfect.
It's just like-
I like that theory because of some fact that I always can do the work in school,
yeah.
but I can never get it up to where everyone else
Right.
is done. So why do I deserve like a D when
D.
this person gets an A? When basically we're doing the same thing. It's just that he can do it a little better than me.
Yeah.
Well, it's a curve too. You have to realize there's a learning curve. There's like, you know, when you have people like that, you have a diverse amount of people, you have to take the whole percentage of work and then figure, all right, well, you completed 56% of this work out of 100%, because we're going to consider 100% as a year-long or semester. You completed the 56%, you're graded at 56%, you're 100% at 56%, but you're not 60, you're not 57, you're not advancing past that. And I think that might be a reason why they give it a grade, is because in the summation of a whole class, you're only so far part of that. You've only completed so much, you've retained so much.
But that's the thing. Why can't you write it in number form? Why does it have to be in letter form? That way, if you write it in number form, people will get it. People will understand it.
Well,
you have not succeeded the part of going past this point.
I understand, and then, you know, it brings into questions like, why would you accept someone if they have 2 Bs? Why would you accept them? Well, if you look at it, Joe Blow has 85 and Susie Sweetheart has 87. So she gets the job because she was 2 points better. I mean, would you really want to know at that aspect? Like, I was that close.
I'd rather line it that way just because if I know I'm that close, okay, I know I'm not that far behind. I know that I have people that's not that far in front of me. But if you're putting a ladder on it, that's just making it seem like, oh, you're not that good enough. Or, oh, you don't deserve it. He deserves it a lot more than you.
Well, that's also stigma that we put on it from years of, you know, doing so. I mean,
Yeah,
there's a
and,
giant
I mean,
stigma.
it's just not. I never like thought of it until she said something about that. But if like I actually just sat here and thought about it because the simple fact of my whole high school career, I was able to do the work better than half the people who actually got A's and B's, but yet I kept getting B's and C's. And that's just something I always wanted to know. There's actually a point in time where I would legit go to class, don't do any work, just because I knew I knew it was too easy for me, and I can't do it. If it's like so easy for me, I can't do it like right there. I have to sit there and sometimes think about how I'm gonna do it. I'll have them do it and it's done. And I'll actually sit there and help people in class, have them do it. They'll get like an 80 on theirs, and yet I'm still getting a 70. And I'm sitting there going, why am I getting this grade? And I helped them with theirs. It makes no sense.
I can sense your frustration, perhaps, on what you've experienced, and academic stereotype threat is the same way. That it can create, for those that feel as though they're being stereotyped, this sense, this questioning as to why things are the way they are and what they can do to improve and move beyond that particular situation. I want to just end with this because we only have just a few minutes left, and talking about how we can empower ourselves to overcome stereotype threat in an academic setting. Because as you are beginning your academic careers here at CCBC, you know, you may encounter in the next semester or a couple of semesters down the road a situation where you feel a sense of academic stereotype, that you are being prejudged and stereotyped based on some aspect of your culture or personality. So what can you do? Keep in mind these 3 things. That stereotype threat is powerful, but it's not all powerful. It does exist, and it can affect us psychologically and mentally when we're taking on certain academic tasks. But just because we've talked about it today, just because you now have hopefully a greater sense of awareness about this thing called stereotype threat, that you can work to reduce any